You wiped your sweaty palms against the fabric of your jeans for what felt like the 100th time that evening, watching as your friend slowly turned around in the place, taking in the room around you. She paused at the wall of your office that held the pegboard full of succulents, staring at them for a few minutes before speaking up.
And what did he say he used this room for before turning it into your surprise?
Wanda asked, her eyes still trained on the plants. You cleared your throat and shifted your weight to the other foot before shoving your hands back into your pockets. Mostly a junk room. He used to hang his power tools on that wall before remodeling it for me. She didn't say anything for another few moments. With a sigh you only barely noticed, she crossed her arms and continued along with her inspection, taking in every detail as if she expected to find something out of place. He did good, didn't he? You finally piped up, hoping to hear your skeptical friend say something nice about your partner and his gift to you. When you and Loki had first started dating, she'd been thrilled, immediately wanting nothing more than to meet the man who so quickly stolen your heart. About a month after you and Loki met, she had gotten a call from the hospital that her mother had suddenly had to be admitted into, leading her to have to fly back to Russia for an intermediate amount of time. It turned out that her breast cancer had returned, and it took over 6 months of treatment for her to beat it. Wanda had stayed with her for the entire time. After losing her brother to cancer a few years ago, she hadn't wanted to leave her mother's side until she knew she was healthy again. During her time away, the two of you had kept up with weekly video calls, and occasionally, if Loki was in the same room as you at the time, he would call out a polite greeting to your friend, but that was the extent of the interactions they had. Her initial joy over your new relationship had quickly taken a turn into worry when you told her you were moving in together. She had expressed her concerns, for good reason. If she'd done the same and moved in with a man that she'd known for only a few months, you would have been terrified for your friend too. But you were hoping that she would change her mind once she had the chance to actually make his acquaintance, now that her mother's health has improved enough for her to return home. This was her first time coming over to yours and Loki's house, and the first thing you wanted to show her was the amazing office he put together for you in his basement. But she'd been strangely quiet ever since she first walked into the building, and it had you feeling antsy. You really wanted your friend to like your partner, despite her reservations at how quickly your relationship had been moving.
This office is really nice,
your friend eventually said, turning to face you fully once she was done with her inspection. You knew her well enough to know that there was something else she wasn't telling you, though, and rather than question her out loud, you just arched an eyebrow, waiting for her to tell you what had her acting so withdrawn.
Look, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be acting so weird, but I just have a strange feeling about all of this. Not just about how fast you two are moving, which still freaks me out a little, by the way, but, I don't know how to describe it. I just have a bad feeling about this place. Do you know how old this building is?
You felt a chill go up your spine, given what you knew about Wanda's feelings. Your friend was an avid practitioner of witchcraft, though that usually just meant that she would occasionally offer to read your tarot cards or to perform a spell to bring you good luck with your writing endeavors. You typically didn't get involved with any of that, though, and Wanda tended to keep that part of her life mostly private. But there had been occasions where she would describe feeling something off about a person or a place that she found disturbing. One time, the two of you had gone to the bar to get some drinks, but after a few minutes of arriving there, she asked if you could leave to go to a different venue. She claimed at the time that she felt like the building was haunted. There had been a not-so-nice presence lingering somewhere close by, and even though you had been skeptical, the two of you had left to go somewhere else. Later on that night, you researched that bar and found out that it was, in fact, reportedly haunted. Over 100 years prior, it had served as a bar and brothel where multiple people had died violently. Neither you nor Wanda had known that before going there for cocktails, and ever since, you tended to respect her impulses when it came to the paranormal, though you would never claim to fully understand them. Now, though, you just shrugged, glancing around the concrete walls and floors surrounding you. Loki hadn't mentioned it, but I feel like most of the brownstones in New York are over 100 years old. Please don't tell me my new home is haunted.
I don't really know.
She trailed off, pursing her lips as she turned and walked out of the room, clearly deep in thought. She paused outside the doorway, looking around for a few moments before stepping back inside.
I don't feel any presences like I normally would in a haunted house, and I didn't feel this way when we were walking through the living room, or even out there in the rest of the basement, but it feels... I don't know, it just feels heavy in there for some reason.
Like, heavy in a bad way, or... She shook her head before meeting your eyes once more, and after heaving another sigh, she gave you a small shrug and a smile.
I don't really know, if I'm being honest. These weird feelings I get don't come with an instruction manual. Maybe something bad happened here in the past, or maybe I'm just being paranoid. My nerves are still a little shot from everything that's happened over the past few months.
A wave of sympathy washed over you, and you stepped closer to pull Wanda into a tight hug. You had felt guilty over the last several weeks. While she'd been in another country, scared to death of losing another family member, you'd been having the time of your life, publishing a new novel and falling in love. You squeezed her tight, feeling her own arms come up and wrap around you. "I'm so sorry, Wanda," you murmured against her hair. You felt her let out a shuddering breath, and she just nodded, letting you hold her for several long moments. The two of you only parted when you heard the front door open upstairs, and you distinctly heard the bell on Lovecraft's collar as she sprinted from some corner of the house to greet her favorite human.
"I'm home, darling,"
Loki called out, and you and Wanda both shared a wide smile.
Come on then. Introduce me to this man I've heard so much about.
She huffed, straightening up and pushing her bangs out of her face. You grinned and led her out of the room and up the stairs. The first thing your eyes landed on when you emerged from the basement was Loki, who was kneeling down to give his cat a few pets, the way he always did when he returned home. He straightened up as soon as he saw you, though, and you then noticed the two fresh bouquets of flowers resting on the side of the table in the entryway.
"Hello there."
He greeted, and you walked over to give him a quick peck on the lips before turning towards Wanda, who also just stepped through the basement door.
The famous Loki himself. It's so nice to finally meet you.
"Oh, the pleasure is all mine."
He replied, shooting her one of his wide, toothy smiles.
"I've been so eager to meet you. I've also been wanting to tell you personally that I'm very glad to hear about your mother's health improving. It takes a lot of strength and support to beat cancer, and from what I've heard, it sounds like having such a dedicated daughter definitely aided in her recovery."
You could tell that his words and the sincerity within them impressed your friend. Her grin had softened into a look of genuine appreciation, and she shot you a quick glance, letting you know without any words needed to be exchanged that he was already earning points with her.
Thank you, Loki. That's very kind of you to say. I'm just glad she's feeling better, and I'm glad to be home so I can see for myself who swept my friend off her feet.
Well, shall we step into the living room and get further acquainted? Before we do that, though, these are for you.
Loki started picking up one of the bouquets of flowers and offering it to Wanda. It consisted of beautiful yellow roses with a few sprigs of baby's breath, and after your friend accepted it with her thanks, he offered you the other bouquet. This one made up of roses so deeply red that they almost looked purple. You grinned and pressed a kiss to his lips before taking the bouquet, waiting behind for a moment as Wanda started stepping towards the living room. Thank you for being so thoughtful. Yellow roses are one of her favorites.
It's the least I can do for someone who's been such a good friend to you, love.
He murmured back. One of his warm hands came to rest on your shoulder, gently steering you towards the direction she was heading in. The next few hours passed quickly, and from your perspective, the first meeting between Wanda and Loki went off without a hitch. He was charming as always, and attentive as she caught you both up on what had transpired during her stay in Russia. He even ordered food from one of her favorite restaurants to be delivered to your door, and as you shared a meal with your two favorite people in the world, you couldn't help but feel so incredibly lucky to have them both in your life. Unbeknownst to you, though, Wanda was feeling less than thrilled the longer the conversation ran. She didn't know why. Loki really was ticking off all the boxes. He was kind. He obviously listened very well. Almost too closely. It was like he was committing everything said over the course of the evening to memory, as if he was memorizing it for a test. And there was something nagging in the back of her mind, a feeling of dread rising in her gut that had her eyes darting between his face and the door to the basement. It had the hairs at the back of her neck standing up, and she tried her best to ignore it, for if no other reason than hating what it meant if her gut was right about the man you'd already moved in with. Besides, he really was doing everything right. She was watching his face like a hawk, and it never shifted into anything other than polite interest. He said all the right things, too. He asked plenty of interesting questions, and he never once talked over either of you or said anything odd or out of place. But after the sun had set and it was time to leave, Wanda all but flew off the couch to walk with you to the front door.
Thank you so much for coming to visit. It probably goes without saying, but you're welcome in our home anytime. And it was truly a pleasure to get to know you more, especially after hearing so many wonderful things about you over these last months.
Loki said, standing and holding his hand out for her to shake. Wanda gave him a tight smile in return and shook his offered hand.
It was so nice to meet you too. Thank you for dinner, and thank you for being a good partner to my best friend. This probably goes without saying, but if you ever hurt her, I will kill you and chop you up into so many pieces that...
Okay, I don't think that's necessary.
It's quite all right. If ever do I hurt her, then I will deserve any punishment that you deem fit. And I won't resist the enactment of said punishment. Deal?
Deal.
With that, the two said their final goodbyes, and you walked your friend to the door, careful not to let Lovecraft escape out onto the street as you walked her down the front steps to her car. As she stopped to fish her keys out of her purse, you let a wide smile come over your face as you gestured back towards the house. So? It's like I built him in a computer, right? She laughed, but you could tell that her heart wasn't fully in it, and the smile dropped from your face when you saw a bit of concern start to overtake her expression.
He's incredible,
she answered flatly. Upon finding her keys, she finally met your eyes, hesitating for a moment before speaking again.
This is probably because I'm just nervous about you rushing into living with him, but I don't know. He said all the right things, and he clearly hangs off your every word. It might be because of how scared I am of you getting hurt, but my gut just tells me that something is off.
You opened your mouth to assure her that there wasn't anything off about your boyfriend, but she held up a hand to stop you.
I know, I promise, I do know that I am probably being paranoid. I like him, I really do, and I know I was the one who pushed you to start dating him in the first place. I just wouldn't feel right about not being honest with you about how I feel. I'm sure that once I get to know him a little better, these feelings will go away and the three of us will just be able to laugh someday about how much of a nervous Nelly I'm being. Just, in the meantime, promise me you'll be careful. If he ever does anything to make you feel uncomfortable, you know that you can come stay with me for as long as you want.
As much as you respected Wanda's intuition, your knee-jerk reaction was to feel annoyed more than anything. She had been the one to convince you to sign up for that dating website earlier this year, and now that you found someone who was all but perfect, she still couldn't just be happy for you. You've been with the two of them the entire time this evening, and Loki hadn't done or said anything to elicit this reaction from her. But you took a deep breath and let it out through your nose, setting aside your frustration and trying not to let it show on your face or seep into your voice. I appreciate you looking out for me. And I would probably be feeling similar if the roles were reversed. But you'll see, just like you said, a year from now when Loki still is yet to snap or do something crazy, we'll be laughing about this together. I'm sure you're going to love him soon enough.
I'm sure I will too,
she assured you, pulling you into a hug. Her arms gave you a tight squeeze, which you returned in kind. You really had missed her, and she didn't know Loki the way you did. It was natural for her to be nervous, but you didn't want it, or anything else, to come between the two of you. You both exchanged goodnights before parting, and after you bounded up the steps and disappeared into yours and Loki's home, Wanda lingered in her car before pushing the key into the ignition. Her eyes were trained on the window into the living room, widening when Loki's lithe silhouette appeared from behind the semi-sheer curtains. She watched as they parted ever so slightly to reveal the left side of his face, and a cold finger crawled down her spine as she realized he was looking right at her. She gulped, nervously twitched her lips into a smile, and her nerves only increased when his split into a toothy grin that didn't quite reach the cold, calculating eyes staring straight through her. With fingers that were slightly trembling, she started her car and quickly backed out of her parking space, not feeling better until she put a block's worth of distance between herself and the house her best friend was now residing in. She wasn't sure if it was the house or the man who owned it that had her feeling so anxious, but despite the hour's worth of pleasant conversation and the cheerful bundle of roses sitting in the passenger seat beside her, she didn't feel any more comforted about whatever situation you managed to get yourself into with Loki. She hoped that she was wrong. She really did. But her gut has never steered her wrong before. The next morning, you decided to sleep in later than usual, only rising out of bed once the sun was shining brightly through your bedroom window. Loki had already left for work a few hours previously, and as you stood up and stretched, you felt your cheeks flush when you realized how sore your body was from last night. You anticipated having less sex after moving in together, figured that the honeymoon phase would wear off as you settled into your respective daily routines, but your lover had surprised you by not slowing in his pace at all. At least, he hadn't yet. But you weren't at all disappointed, even when your thighs ached this morning as you descended the stairs to retrieve some much-needed caffeine from the kitchen. As you were picking up the coffee pot to pour a cup, however, you heard the front doorbell ring, and it startled you so much that you instinctively dropped what you were holding. Luckily, the pot didn't break when it landed on the counter, but some of its contents did slosh over the side and spill over your hand. Ah, fuck! You cursed, immediately darting to the sink to run the burn under some cold water. The pain hit you immediately, and you gritted your teeth as you flexed your hand, pulling it away after a few seconds to dab it dry with a paper towel. You were suddenly really glad that Loki kept an aloe vera plant growing in the dining room. You scurried over to the plant after grabbing a pair of scissors and clipped off part of a leaf, peeling some of its skin away before pressing it into the burn. It soothed the ache immediately, and though it didn't take it away fully, it did enough for your brain to focus on the thing that had startled you to begin with. Pulling your robe tighter around yourself, you hurried to the door to see who stopped by, expecting it to be a package or perhaps someone trying to sell you a Bible or something. But when you opened the door to find a beautiful woman with bright red hair waiting on the other side, you stopped in your tracks. Her eyebrows were furrowed, and her plump lips were pressed tightly together. But despite her stormy expression, her beauty was the first thing that hit you. Quickly thereafter, though, came the odd sensation of familiarity. You knew that you'd seen her face before, but until she opened her mouth to speak, you couldn't quite place where it was that you recognized it from. Miss, my name is Detective Romanoff. Do you have some time to answer a few questions this morning?